Let me just quickly say tonight, I want to talk to you about the topic, did Jesus make mistakes? Mark Driscoll, who has formerly been known by some as the cussing pastor. Mark Driscoll has come out and said in a sermon that Jesus made mistakes. One report says that this statement was eliminated from his sermon on the church website, but we have acquired a copy of it, and under federal fair use, we're going to play it. Did Jesus make mistakes? Asks Mark Driscoll. I'll tell you what I think about that question even being raised. All right, let's start out with our first topic tonight in the Worldview Weekend second hour. Here's the headline, Christianity Today. Did Jesus make mistakes? Subtitled, or the subheading of the article, Mark Driscoll says yes, though Jesus never sinned. So Jesus made mistakes, says Mark Driscoll, but he never sinned. Why would you even ask this question? Did Jesus make mistakes? Because people, when they hear the word Jesus made mistakes, equate a mistake with something that is wrong or a sin. Why would you even ask this question? I'd like to know. And then Mark Driscoll goes on to talk about the text that we find where Jesus grew in wisdom and stature. What does that mean? Well, let's examine that over the next few minutes. But first, here's the video clip I want you to see of Mark Driscoll delivering a sermon at his church, I believe this is, asking his congregation if Jesus made mistakes. You can see that Mark Driscoll himself, I think, actually is a little nervous to even ask the question. And again, I think it's a silly question to even ask, and one that's actually potentially even dangerous and misleading to people. But watch this video clip of Mark Driscoll asking the question, did Jesus make mistakes? And then I want to answer that question. Here's Mark Driscoll.
Okay, ready? What I'm going to tell you now might be a heresy. I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay? I just say that so that if it is, I have an out. Okay, so what I'm going to say now is, okay, I'll just say it. Okay, Jesus, okay, never sinned. Would you give me that? He never sinned. True? Okay, good. You've been well taught. Okay, I think. Okay, so never sinned. Okay, okay. Never violated any command of the Bible. But, question. Here it goes. Brain explode. Ready? Here we go. Is it possible that he made some mistakes? Okay. Okay. Meaning, when he was a little kid, right, if Joseph set him on his bike, did he need no training wheels, didn't wobble, just rolled around Jerusalem? Okay? When he played Little League, if he played Little League, every time he got up, was it like, walk him. Do not throw the ball to Jesus. He hits a home run every time. Every time he hits a home run. Do you think he ever hit a single? Do you ever hit a double? Do you think ever maybe he would have swung and missed? Do you think if a ball was on the outside corner and it was a strike, maybe one time, hypothetically, possibly, he didn't swing at it? Did he ever make a mistake? Not a sin, mistake. Did he ever have to do something twice because he didn't get it right the first time when he was learning as a little kid how to write his letters? Because it was like, I could do this, Mom. I made the heavens and the earth. Watch. Right? I could do cursive too. Or did he have to, okay, this is how you make, okay, I got it right the second time. What do you think? What do you think? It says in Luke that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with men of God. He grew. What that means is he had to learn how to do things. Okay. You're going to need to learn how to do things. One of the ways we learn how to do things is we don't get it right the first time. We fail. So then we learn from it and we figure out how to do it. That's how we do things.
All right, so did Jesus make mistakes? Here's what the article says from Christianity Today. On May 4th, Mark Driscoll preached at Mars Hill Church in Seattle on Acts 16:1 through 7. As usual, the video of the sermon was not posted on As usual, the video of the sermon was not posted on the church's website until 2 weeks later. However, Mars Hill Church deleted a section from the video of Driscoll's original message. In that deleted section, Driscoll distinguished between sin and mistakes, claiming Jesus never sinned, but he did make mistakes. Now, I just showed you that video. I guess they've pulled it off their website, but we have it for you. Driscoll was referencing Luke chapter 2, verse 52, where Jesus is said to have grown in wisdom and stature. The article goes on to say it's misleading, quoting a guy from United Theological Seminary. He says it's misleading to call any behaviors of Jesus that reflected incomplete human knowledge mistakes, since mistakes commonly means misguided or wrong. It's better to avoid the term with regard to Jesus. And I agree with Howard Snyder, former professor of United Theological Seminary, who made that statement about Driscoll. Let's look at the text. Let's go to Luke chapter 2, verse 52, which says, "And Jesus kept increasing in wisdom and stature and favor with God and men." Does this mean that Jesus made mistakes? No, that's not what we read at all. Mark Driscoll asked a question. You're saying that Jesus hit a home run every time he got up to play baseball? I know that Mark is probably being facetious, but there's no record in the scripture of Jesus playing baseball. He asked, did Jesus need training wheels? There's no record of Jesus riding a bike. All right, so this is just a silly question to start with. One that, as I said, could be very misleading to many people. But if you're asking me, when Jesus was a little child and he was learning to walk, did he stumble as he was putting one foot in front of another? That's not a mistake, okay? When your child is learning to walk and he's pulling up and on some furniture or something and starting to walk and stumbles and falls down, is that a mistake? That's the learning process. That's not a mistake. So this is a silly question by Mark Driscoll anyway. But he's doing this in regards to Luke chapter 2, verse 52. "And Jesus kept increasing in wisdom and stature in favor with God and men." Well, what does this verse mean? Why would you even ask the question, did Jesus make mistakes, in the context of looking at Luke 2:52? Because that's not what this verse is talking about when it talks about Jesus increasing in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. It's not talking about Jesus making mistakes. So why would you even ask that question in the context of looking at Luke chapter 2, verse 52? Let me read to you from the MacArthur New Testament commentary for Luke, chapter 1 through 5. And again, I don't know if you have a good set of Bible commentaries, but I suggest you get a good set of Bible commentaries. Even if you purchase one at a time, or maybe you could ask your spouse or parents or kids for birthday or Christmas gifts, hey, I'd like to have a commentary, and start with Matthew and Mark and Luke and John and work your way through, because the complete commentaries for the New Testament are now out, I think, minus one commentary is left to go, and I think that'll be out later this year. And I'm blessed to have all of them except for the one that's yet to come out, and I use them pretty much on a daily basis. And so you can get other commentaries. I just happen to like this one. If you would like to get a copy of these commentaries, I'm sure you can order them at gty.org. But look at what MacArthur writes in regards to Luke chapter 2, verse 52. He says, "In the unfathomable mystery of the incarnation," meaning Jesus was 100% God and he was 100% man. You can't be 200% of something, right? You cannot be 200% of something. Yet Jesus was 100% man and 100% God. That is unfathomable, isn't it? It seems like a paradox. It's a seeming paradox, but we accept it in faith that Jesus was 100% man, 100% God, the deity of Jesus Christ, Emmanuel, God with us. And so MacArthur writes, "It is unfathomable, in the unfathomable mystery of the incarnation, when Jesus emptied himself, taking the form of a bondservant, and was made in the likeness of men," as we read in Philippians 2:7, "and was found in appearance as a man, he was subject to the normal process of human growth and development." So that's not a mistake, okay? Jesus grew in wisdom, and his intellect grasp of divine truth increased. Physically in stature and spiritually in stature and spiritually in favor with God, strengthened by his victories over the assaults of temptation. The reference to his finding favor with man describes his increasing social maturity and the respect he commanded. So this is what it means when it says he increased in wisdom and stature. Let me read that again. Jesus grew in wisdom as his intellectual grasp of divine truth increased. physically in stature and spiritually in favor with God, strengthened by his victories over the assaults of temptation. MacArthur goes on to write, the question arises as to why Jesus needed to live all those years instead of simply coming to earth, dying as a substitute for sins, rising from the dead, and ascending back to heaven. You ever wondered that? Why did Jesus have to live for 33 years? Why couldn't he just come down as a man, given his life, died, buried, resurrected, and ascended into heaven? Why did he have to live 33 years on this earth? Well, MacArthur answers the question. He says, the answer is that he had to live a perfectly righteous life and fulfill all righteousness, Matthew 3:15, and thus prove to be the perfect sacrifice to take the place of sinners, 1 Peter 3:18. Only then could his righteousness be imputed to believers and their sins placed on him. When Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 5:21 that God made him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf so that we might become the righteousness of God in him, he expressed both aspects of Christ's substitutionary atonement. Not only did Jesus bear believers' sins, God also imputed his righteousness to them. To put it in another way, God treated Christ as if he had lived believers' sinful lives, and believers as if they had lived his perfectly righteous life. That's great. Let's read that again. To put it in another way, God treated Christ as if he had lived believers' sinful lives, and believers as if they had lived his perfectly righteous life. Jesus lived a perfectly righteous life from childhood through adult, so that his righteous life could be imputed to believers. Salvation comes only to those who do not have a righteousness of their own derived from the law, but that which is through faith in Christ, the righteousness which comes from God on the basis of faith, end quote. So let's understand what is the context of Luke chapter 2, verse 52, and what it means to grow in stature and in favor with God and man. And thus we don't even need to ask the question, did Jesus make mistakes? Learning to walk and stumbling as you learn to walk as a child is not a mistake. It's the learning process. It's a silly question from, I think, a very silly and immature man who has no, I believe, biblical justification to even be a pastor. And there's much more we could say about that in regards to Mark Driscoll. But let's move on. The third way. We have talked to you many